Welcome to the Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth Podcast. I'm Ira, medical astrologist, astroherbalist, and green witch. I was diagnosed with endometriosis at 19, and I was told I would never have children. I healed my body through the power of herbs, alternative health practitioners, energy healing, and more. At 28, I had the baby they said I would never have, without any interventions. I refused to believe that my body was not able to heal itself. Along this journey, I stumbled across medical astrology, and it resonated with me so much. I started down the path to learning this unique system that had been used for thousands of years in the medical community. I now help other women heal their bodies using their cosmic blueprint, the unique blueprint that every person has embedded in their DNA from the stars. This system helps me see what's going on in your body on a cosmic level and exactly how to help you give your body what it needs to heal itself. We are all uniquely and amazingly designed, and when we learn to work with our design, love ourselves for how we are designed to function, and integrate the cosmos into our lives, I truly believe that we can see true and lasting health brought into our lives. If you are ready to change your life, heal your body, and learn to deeply love who you are, this podcast is for you. Come join me as I discuss medical astrology, astronutrition, astroherbalism, health, wellness, spirituality, transformation, and so much more. I'm so excited you are joining me. My fellow seekers of the extraordinary, have you dared to venture into the dark side? If not, you are missing out on an exclusive experience like no other. Introducing The Dark Side, a members-only subscription of the Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth Podcast, where boundaries are pushed and nothing is off limits. Join your enigmatic host, Ire, as she takes you on a journey through taboo subjects, holistic health, the witchy and woo, social issues, spirituality, and so much more. So what awaits you on the dark side? Let me tell you, exclusive podcast episodes, captivating guest speakers, live events, immersive video episodes, and a dash of mystery. And of course, we have cookies. The best part? It's just $4.99 a month. You'll unlock 4 extra episodes every month, plus exclusive access to live events throughout the year. That's a little over $1 per mind-expanding episode, and you'll be front and center for live events with Ire and intriguing guests. But wait, there's more. Your subscription also includes VIP access to a members-only section in the Astro Connection community. Connect with like-minded individuals and dive even deeper into the cosmic conversation. Do not miss this steal of a deal. Join Ire on the dark side today. For only $4.99 a month, you can be part of an exclusive community that explores the extraordinary. Are you ready to embark on this cosmic journey? Click the link in the show notes today to join. The dark side awakes. Come join us. Y'all. Let me tell you about this brand new offering that is coming out this week. I want to introduce you to the Astro Aligned Kitchen. Have you been really tired of starving yourself and cutting out entire food groups for like weeks or months at a time and trying to remember what is and is not allowed on whatever diet you're doing this week? Me too. I am so over the diet culture way of starving myself and not allowing myself to enjoy life because of whatever restrictive diet I'm on now. Right? So when I found medical astrology and astronutrition, that literally changed my life. I learned my cosmic blueprint and exactly how my body is designed to use nutrients, which one it needs more of, and the best foods for my body. Best of all, I really learned how to properly nourish and fuel my body for the activities that I love to do, i.e. heavy weightlifting in the gym. So I had no more feeling faint at the gym because I haven't eaten since 6 p.m. the day before and skipped pre-workout meal ahead of time because the diet says that working out on an empty stomach is better, right? No more feeling hungry all the time. No more guessing what was best or not for my body. And best of all, no more restrictive eating because fuck that. Your body is cosmically designed to function at its best when you align the nutrients that your metabolism needs to work optimally. And this is all determined by your Mars placement. So knowing where your Mars placement is in your natal chart helps you to understand what nutrients your body needs the most to function at its best. For example, my Mars placement is in Virgo, so I need a high protein intake as well as ensuring that I get plenty of fat-soluble vitamins daily. And then due to my Saturn in Scorpio, I also need to focus on more alkaline and fermented foods with plenty of fiber. So when I started following this, right, and nourishing my body with nutrient-dense whole foods, I started feeling better than I have in years. I was able to release 30 pounds in a year, and I did not starve myself or work out at the gym until I literally passed out or felt like I was going to, right? I enjoyed life again because no foods were off limits. This meant I could eat pizza, ice cream, birthday cake, donuts, all of the carbs, And let me tell you, I did not miss one, and I did not feel guilty while doing it. But what I really found was it was hard to nourish my body properly during this when my kitchen was still full of all of the foods that my body just didn't like as well as others. And so I started by cleaning it out and starting over fresh. And I've had so many clients over the last year ask me how I managed to keep on cooking nutrient dense foods for 3 meals a day when they were struggling and it seemed so hard. So step number one is setting yourself up for success, right? And that is what AstroHealth Kitchen is designed to do. In this one-of-a-kind program, you will learn how to determine your cosmic blueprint, what that means in terms of your metabolism, and how to best nourish your body based on your design. And then after all of that, we work through cleaning out your kitchen and setting it back up for success and nourishing your body with nutrient-dense whole foods from now until forever. So if you're hearing this and going, fuck yeah, how do I sign up? Scroll down to the show notes and click on the link. This will take you to the AstroHealth Kitchen program. It is waiting for you, and I am super excited to have you join me in this one-of-a-kind program. Let's kick diet culture to the curb forever, and I will see you inside the kitchen. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth. I'm Ayaratla. I'm your host, and today we are going to jump in and discuss the outer 3 planets and their roles in medical astrology. As you know, I've mentioned it before, they were not initially part of the medical astrology system, and so as such, they're not really as fleshed out or as well understood for the roles they play in the body. But I have noticed that they definitely do influence health and such, and so I do want to include them. In this episode, we will be discussing Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So let's dive in, shall we? So the outer 3 planets. These planets do not have as strong of an impact on the physical body due to being invisible in nature to the naked eye, right? They're considered the invisible planets because the majority of the time we cannot see them just by looking up into the night sky like we can the inner 7 planets. So due to that, they tend to have more of an impact upon the psychological and the spiritual body. And as you know, those can also create symptoms for many people and lead to dis-ease in the body. So as far as correspondences to herbs go, all herbs are governed by the inner 7 planets. So we do see some correspondences to the invisible actions of the plants, meaning like their electromagnetic field and the spiritual forces. So if I mention anything at all, it will be about those. For the most part, though, we're not really going to dive into any herbal correspondences in this episode. So let's start off with Uranus because it was the first one to be discovered of the 3. Uranus was discovered in 1781 and it shattered the astrology world. For one, the entire system was based upon a 7-fold structure, and now there was an 8th planet, so a lot of people thought that completely negated everything, right? And for 2, it was a deeply symbolic event. This discovery showed a new dynamic of human consciousness that was just birthed into awareness. And Uranus governs the electrical system of the body. And ironically, or maybe divinely, right around the time of its discovery, electricity was really just being developed and discovered and used more than anything else. And it was also a time of war as the French and the American revolutions were occurring. Uranus represents the transpersonal aspects of our consciousness, so what lies beyond all of the limits, structures, and boundaries that we saw created by Saturn. So ultimately, Saturn is the ruler of the earth, and Uranus is the ruler of the heavens. Uranus energy is shocking, striking like a lightning bolt from above and shocks us into a new way of seeing things and out of our limits and structures that we were comfortable in and that we need to get out of being comfortable in, right? So it's a pure force that unlocks the energy inherent inside a form. The outer planets represent not our persona like the other inner 7 or our ego, but our transpersonal self. So the aspects of our being that transcend our standard psychic parts. Neptune is the next planet that was discovered. It's named after the god of the sea, who carries a trident. So Neptune answers the question of what lies beyond our individuality. Uranus helps us break down the old ways and shed old structures and culturally imposed ideals of humanity, right? So that we can discover our individuality. If our individuality is the core of being, then what could be deeper than that? Well, in Neptune, we find that answer. Neptune represents the transcendent part of the self, that which is beyond the ego, beyond the individuality, beyond all of that, into the actual consciousness of ourselves. It is pure awareness, like the watcher on a hill, right? It is similar to viewing the oceans as a container that holds the physical structure of the earth. In this way, we can see the consciousness is the container through which our ego and individuality come through. Neptune shows us that we are more than just our own individuality, right? We are just a drop in the ocean. We are not separate from life, but we are intricately interwoven into the creation of the universe. And as such, we are connected to all things. It shows us as above, so below, in correlation with our lives and all that is around us. Pluto is the last of the outer three planets to get discovered, and so as such is the last one that we will be discussing today. Pluto gets a bad rap, in my estimation, by many. It's kind of seen as like a destructive force with a rather evil energy to it, but no planet is good or bad, right? Like, they don't have those qualities to it, like people try to assign to them. So that is really not how Pluto is, right? It can't be a bad, evil planet, because planets can't be bad or evil or good. They are what they are. And so I think that's the furthest thing from the truth, though I see it making sense in why people would feel that way, right? But it's definitely not how I view it. Pluto was discovered during a dark time in history, and many people were suffering. It was the time of the Great Depression. Dictators were rising into power. Think like Hitler, Mussolini, etc., right? And the atom bomb was developed, which, side note and kind of interesting, is it's created from the element plutonium right around the time Pluto was discovered. So kind of an interesting correlation there. It was discovered in the 1930s and is the furthest planet from the sun, and as such, it is a pure, raw, unadulterated force. It's tiny, it's cold, it's basically a frozen wasteland, but Pluto helps us realize that no matter how small we feel, that we are full of raw power that we can use to change the world. But it starts with ourselves first, so changing ourselves in our lives will ultimately change others in the world as well. And Pluto can teach us so much, but I see it going in a couple of different ways. The first one that I see is like the I'm nothing, I'm just a speck in this universe, nothing at all, just a meaningless and powerless being. Existence is futile, right? And this shows that they have not integrated Pluto's power and teachings into their life very well, if at all. To get to Pluto's energy, we must first move through Uranus and then Neptune's energy, right? The only way to Pluto is to go past those other two planets. So we need to first discover our individuality from societal and cultural expectations, and then have a direct experience with the underlying unities of life. So a spiritual experience of some sort, right? Then after this, we are then can look further to what we are going to do with this newfound perspective. We can let it then empower us, fill us up, charge us up with a deep desire and the will to do something good with it. I also see people taking the opposite approach of the I'm nothing at all kind of thing, right? Where we see the perspective of seeing that there is something more to life than what meets the eye. That we have a destiny and a need to fulfill it. That we are here for a greater purpose, and our individual lives can and will make a difference. That yes, we are minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but we still hold the power inside of us to shape the world, affect vast change, and have an ability to transform ourselves and the world around us, right? With this view, we see Pluto representing our inner power, our ability to take our individuality and reveal it to the world, and then become a leader and contribute our part to shaping and changing the world around us. So I see Pluto representing an innate gift that we all hold inside of us. And we hold our wisdom there too. And it just takes some kind of transformation or, death to something in life for that to come back and come through. And have that gift come forward enough that we know what it is and then how to use it to affect change in the world. As far as the elements that are associated with each planet, Uranus is associated with the air element. Neptune and Pluto are both associated with water, but as Pluto rules Scorpio, we see that fixed water energy here over the mutable water energy of Neptune. So it is a bit different in how it presents, right? Like fixed water energy presents in the medical astrology in a very like stagnant manner in the body. Sometimes it just sits there and it doesn't move as fast as we would like it to. So it's very slow moving, slow to change sometimes, even if change is what's needed, which kind of fits Pluto's nature, right? It's very slow moving. It takes it like 80 plus years to get around the sun. So it's not exactly, a speedy planet. It definitely is not like Mercury, as we talked about in a previous episode. And so we can see that kind of energy here with Pluto too, that sometimes we're too stubborn to change, even though we know we need to, and there's everything happening around us to make us know that we need to change, and we're ignoring it. Whereas Neptune is mutable water energy as it rules Pisces, and so it is very changeable, and sometimes to a fault, right? Where it's so changeable that they get lost in who they really are and their individuality and get sucked out of the good of Uranus being, helping us come into our individuality, and they get sucked back into like the collective, or just kind of dancing around in like the other realms and not really feeling grounded to the earth and not experiencing life here as they should. So there's both water, but both different, right? As far as the glyphs, the glyph for Uranus, it kind of looks like an electric pole, like an electrical pole that holds all the wires, or a cell phone tower to me personally. So obviously, though, when it was created, those didn't yet exist, but I do kind of see that it kind of looks like them now. As trying to describe it will be a little difficult, let me tell you. So it's a vertical line, right, with a horizontal line at the bottom and a horizontal line at the top. And the horizontal line at the top is a little bit longer than the one at the bottom. And then it has two vertical lines, so one on either end of that top horizontal line. So it looks like a middle line, a top line, two side lines, and then a little tiny bottom line. And honestly, if you're listening to this episode, I am sorry that you can't see it. Head over to the blog and check it out there. Google it. It is so hard to explain what these glyphs look like verbally sometimes. Neptune's glyph, on the other hand, is easy. It's a trident, after which the sea god uses, that it's named after. So that one's super easy to remember, and it's super easy to describe. The glyph for Pluto is a cross with a crescent on top of it and a circle that sits kind of inside of that crescent, but not touching the sides, right? It kind of is like hovering above it. So it looks kind of like a staff that you would see like a wizard holding in some like sci-fi movies and stuff, which would make sense because, right, wizards have the power to cast spells and change people and things into other beings in all the stories and myths that we hear about them. So it kind of makes sense that a wizard-looking staff glyph would go with Pluto and its ability to transform. So let's get into rulerships. I talked a little bit about some of that just a minute ago, but let's dive a little deeper. So Uranus, as I mentioned, rules the electrical system of the body. So it has a good deal to do with the nervous system and the brain as well. Uranus is actually considered the higher octave of Mercury, so that makes sense, right? If you recall the episode on Mercury, where we talked about it governing the communications in the body, which is the nervous system, right? We see Uranus can bring nervousness, tension, cramping, spasms, anxiety to a person if it's in a very strong placement in their chart. As Uranus also rules extremes and is considered the rebel planet, we also can see him having the ability to create random symptoms, ones that come on with an extreme and rapid onset, or just to create like an overall disturbance of the normal rhythm and balance and harmony of the body, right? Uranus also rules Aquarius, and in medical astrology, if you recall, Aquarius rules the electrical system of the body as well as the calves and ankles. So that's why those two have that correspondence and that rulership. Though if you also remember, Saturn also rules Aquarius. So we kind of see that as above, so below being connected there as well as with Neptune, because we have Saturn kind of ruling over like the Earth, right? Because it governs physical boundaries, and it also rules an Earth sign, and then it also rules Aquarius, like the heavens, and Uranus rules the heavens. So as above, so below. So we see all that kind of corresponding and working out together. Neptune in turn rules over Pisces, as I mentioned. So we see a correspondence with rulership over sleep, energy levels, and the psyche, same as Pisces. I don't really see much of a correspondence to like feet and the immune system per se, like Pisces has as well. So I see it mainly on those things. Neptune's energy, and as Uranus's energy, is very like lightning strike, right? It's very quick and onset, fast, and like sharp shooting. Here I am, and then disappears again, right? Like lightning strike. I see Neptune's energy is the opposite. It's very diffusive. It's non-material. It's mystical. It's hard to track, right? And Neptune is like the spiritual planet. It rules Pisces, which rules the 12th house, which rules the spiritual side of our lives, right? And our psyche. So in medical astrology, I see that any medical issue that's like an utter mystery of how or why it started is usually found under Neptune's influence in the body. I see a lot of correspondences to addiction here as well, which is due to Neptune's highly spiritual influence that can lead to a tendency to want to just like escape reality, right? And live in that spiritual otherworldly realm, which is where we see Pisces having that same thing. They get so caught up in wanting to live a spiritual life, they forget to also live an earthly life and enjoy the physical realm that they're also inhabiting. Neptune I see associated too with psychiatric disorders and spiritual causes of dis-ease in the body, such as curses, hexes, intrusive energies from others also. Pluto, being so new, as well as very slow moving, has minimal research done on how it affects one's natal chart in the medical astrology side. So per Judith Hill, one of my mentors, she says there may be some association with like obsessions, plagues, DNA, genetic illnesses, radiation, cancers, mutations, like gene mutations, and drug-resistant bacteria. Personally, I see changes within the body on a cellular level being common here. That's just what I have seen in my years of doing this. If you've seen something else, let me know. I would love to hear what you've also seen, because Pluto is still kind of such a mystery in many ways that I love to see what other people have kind of seen as correspondences as well. As far as the symbols that are associated with each planet, we have Uranus, which symbolizes the process of liberation, of freeing ourselves from external and self-imposed restrictions of who and what we should be, right, quote unquote should be, so that we can find out who we truly are on our own accord. I also see it symbolizing freedom, revolution, independence. The time it was discovered really shows this too, as it was during two separate revolutions and the shattering of the old ties, of the restrictions imposed by external forces, and the independence of the self from the confines of authority and conformity, right? It was a time of individuals standing up for themselves, crying out against unfair practices, of fighting for their freedom from government forces that were harming the people, and people wanting to live their lives as judged by their own internal virtue. And here in 2024, we see that same thing happening again in many places. The age of Aquarius is upon us, right? So we will see good changes happening across the world as the common people stand up and fight for what they truly want. So expect some more revolutions in some way, shape, or form, right? That also symbolizes being like cutting edge and going against the grain, which we even see in how Uranus rotates around the sun, as it rotates on its side instead of rotating on its axis like the Earth does and all the other planets do. Like, instead of rotating like the Earth does on like we're up straight up and down, north is at the top and south is at the bottom, and we rotate that way, south is north, they're always in the same place, right? We see instead that south and north, instead of facing up and down and being like that way, we see it pointing so that north faces the sun and south faces like Neptune, and then it rotates left to right and then around the Earth. So around the sun, not around the Earth, around the sun. So it's even a rebel in how it rotates in the sky. It's the divine rebel planet that brings about a new vision for humanity that will be a service to all, not just a few. So in that way, we see Uranus embodying the archetype of Prometheus, who stole the fire of the heavens and brought it down to humanity so they could use it and further their knowledge and independence. Neptune, on the other hand, as we already kind of mentioned, is the archetype of Neptune, god of the sea. I also see Neptune kind of being synonymous to the mycelium network, right? That's that interconnected network of fungal fibers that exist beneath the soil and connects the entire forest together, enabling it to communicate with itself and other mushrooms and other forms of life. And due to this correspondence, we see most of Neptune's energy as being beneath the surface. It's in a more internal energy. In fact, most of these are more internal energies, like we see with Uranus, right? Like anxiety, which is more of an internal thing that we're feeling and not necessarily able to always be seen externally by other people. Same with Neptune's energy. It's a very internal kind of symptom that occurs and things that happen that aren't always visible to other people around you, that something is going on, right? I see this too as something that we sense over something that we can see, like the energy of Neptune. We can sense that something is changing, but we can't always see what that is, right? Like we know it before we know it, if that makes sense. As such, right, we can then enter a state of being able to communicate with the world around us and the greater mysteries of life, because we can sense things that are happening before we can actually see them. And we may never physically see them. This is kind of the planet that governs us, like being able to talk to beings from other realms and people who are psychic and can talk to, those that have passed on from this life, right, and are no longer a part of this physical plane. Pluto, on the other hand, as most know, is most well known for symbolizing death and rebirth. It's the archetype of the phoenix bird, right? Where one dies to who they thought they were or how others thought of them, and then they rise from the ashes and are reborn into a new form or persona. They are now the person they are meant to be. And that's for this season, because that can always change again, as we've seen, right? We see it symbolizing the raw power to create and destroy. Like, think of the atom bomb, right? That energy can absolutely level and destroy a place. It can destroy the entire Earth if we get one big enough, right? But we can harness that power in such a way to also give power and energy back to the Earth and its inhabitants as well, which is what we see in like nuclear power plants, right? They create power for people to use using basically very similar principles to what happens in an atom bomb that we use to destroy things. So we see that dual nature of Pluto in that. Pluto is also associated with chaos and confusion. We see him being associated with Hades, the god of the underworld. We see in Pluto's connection then with that to the subconscious mind and the collective unconscious as well. We see that we need to harness that power, but to do so, we must dive into the darkest, deep recesses of our mind, shine a light of awareness upon what we find in the shadows, and transform them into something good and beautiful. This is also seen in Pluto's rulership of Scorpio, right, which embodies all of those principles as well. And I can tell you, as a 5-planet Scorpio, that is very true. We very much embody that. We also see Pluto symbolizing death and dying, and this can be actual physical death, right, or a symbolic death to thoughts and beliefs we once held and new truths emerging. Pluto energy is powerful, and it causes us to hit rock bottom many times, to face our demons, to descend into the underworld. In this way, we die, but as is true with all nature, we are inextricably intertwined with nature, right? Remember, because we're all a part. We're all created from the same stuff. We are all a part of the earth, and the earth is a part of us. The process of regeneration then ensues, and we are reborn, transformed anew. This is deeply significant in regards to our healing as humans as well, because it's a rich symbolism of alchemy, which is a key part of medical astrology, right? Where a plant or mineral substance is consciously taken through a symbolic death and resurrection into a more evolved healing force. And we can see that happening in the body too. Many times I can see that to fully heal a problem that is occurring with a client, they have to die in a way. They have to die to what they thought that they were going to be, what they think they should be doing, how they think they should be feeling, how they think this healing journey is going to go. They want it to be a straight linear line, right? And unfortunately, that's not how it goes. It's very crooked and up and down. It's up a mountain, down in a valley, through a river, down into the underworld, back up into the heavens. Like it's all over the place. And so that's what alchemy is why we use spagyric tinctures in medical astrology, because it's literally symbolic of the death and then rebirth of the plant anew into a new form, a new substance that then it's more powerful than it was prior to putting it through that process. So we see that death is not really the opposite of life, but rather the opposite of birth. Death and birth are just two ends of one spectrum that makes up life total. So here we kind of see that symbolized by the Ouroboros, which is a snake circling on itself, eating its own tail. And this reveals the truth of regeneration and that all things must die in order to be reborn. And we see that in nature everywhere, right? When a forest isn't doing well, what will happen? A cleansing fire will go through it, and it will burn down all of the stuff that is holding the forest back from growing and maturing and adding to it because there was too much overgrowth and not enough sun. And when all of those trees have been burned down and there's a lot more sun, new life can be reborn from the ashes of the trees that burned. As far as astronutrition, this is going to be a lot shorter than the other ones because, for one, Uranus has no governance over any vitamin or mineral. So we're skipping that. Neptune rules two. It rules the pantothenic acid, which is B5, and laetrile, which is B17, which you might not have even known existed because it's not a very common B vitamin that we hear talked about, right? So pantothenic acid is also known as vitamin B5, and it's what we call the adrenal vitamin. It is especially important in the adrenal cortex, which is the outer layer of tissue that surrounds our adrenal glands, and those sit on top of our kidneys, right? It helps stimulate pantothenic acid, helps stimulate the production of cortisone and many other hormones that are responsible for healthy nerves and skin. It also keeps our body free from infection as it is essential for the production of antibodies. It increases energy and it speeds recovery as well. It keeps the gut microbiome healthy and happy, and the nerves in the brain functioning as they should. We see it being stored in the liver, heart, and kidneys, so you do store it, but you do also need to get it daily if you're under a lot of stress, especially because you will be burning through it a lot quicker because you will be producing a lot of cortisol and adrenaline when you're under a lot of stress. And so you will burn through it quicker to help produce those. So you will need to make sure you are getting this daily and in higher doses if you are under a lot of stress. You can find it in lima beans, broccoli, raw cauliflower, chickpeas, mushrooms, avocados, elderberries. I was told it's in raw elderberries, but elderberries raw are toxic and should not be consumed, so you should always cook your elderberries first. So in that case, it may or may not still be present in elderberries once you have cooked them for consumption. It's found in orange and pineapple juice. It's found in watermelon. It's found in beef, liver, kidney, and heart. It's found in chicken, liver, and heart. It's found in lobster. It's found in eggs, especially in the yolks, and it's found in nutritional yeast. It's water soluble, so again, it's really hard to overdose on it, and you do need it daily, especially if you're under a lot of stress. As previously mentioned, it is taken up best and used best by the body when it's taken with the rest of the B complex vitamins, especially B6, B12, biotin, and folic acid. Vitamin C, calcium, and sulfur are also primary allies that work really well with this B6, B5 to make sure that it's taken up appropriately and stored as it should be and used as it should be. And those, if you remember, are all ruled by Saturn. Optimal daily dose is 10 to 50 milligrams, 50 milligrams, though one can take up to 1,000 milligrams daily for 6-ish months. I wouldn't do more than 6 months. If you notice you were on the sick, not sick, sick again Ferris wheel that we discussed a few weeks back in a previous episode, but typically 10 to 50 milligrams daily should be enough for the average human being who's not under a ton of stress or constantly getting sick. Laetrile, as far as B17, this is not something you need daily. It's actually been found in many studies to help with cancer and bringing about the eradication of cancer in a person's body. And so it should only be taken under the guidance of a medical professional, and it has to be dosed very specifically. So we're not going to even get into any of that. But that being said, you can see the correspondence with Neptune here, right? Cancer is often an unseen force inside one's body that brings about destruction if not treated and eradicated, right? The same with Neptune. Untreated issues, be those psychological, spiritual, or traumatic, that lead to addiction or dis-ease will lead to destruction of the physical body, if not found and eradicated. So you got to find those root causes, right, to fix the problem. And Neptune is really good at hiding those root causes. And so cancer sometimes can be the root cause of why someone's having an issue, but it's not always easily found and discovered. And sometimes it's found finally, but then it's almost too late, right? Or is too late in some cases, unfortunately. So we see that governance there with Neptune. This will never be something that you need to go out searching for and taking unless, you have the unfortunate discovery of cancer in your body, and that would be something you would discuss with your medical team at that point. And then we move on to Pluto. It rules one vitamin exactly, orotic acid, also known as B13. Orotic acid is necessary, there we go, for the small but very important step, right, in the formation and biosynthesis of nucleic acids, which aid in creating RNA, which is one of the main components of the genetic makeup in the human body. And it is vital for the regeneration of the cell. B13 is. B13 is vital for the regeneration of the cell. It's mainly stored in the liver and the brain, and it is found mainly in milk products that have been curdled. So like buttermilk is one of the main ones that I could think of. I don't know too many other curdled milk products that we're running around ingesting anymore. It is then really actually found in the whey of said curdled milk. So once you curdle the milk, it separates the cream in the whey, which is like the really thin part of the milk, comes to the surface. So drinking that whey can actually be really helpful in ensuring you get enough of this vitamin. So it is found mainly in whey of all kinds of milk. Breast milk, actually, too, even. So it is found in all kinds of milks. Goat milk, horse milk. It's only found in cow's milk after it's been curdled. It's not found in it before it's been curdled, which is also kind of an interesting thing, that it has to be transformed for this vitamin to come to the surface. Optimal daily dosage is unknown because it's not something that we apparently need a whole hell of a lot of. So it's assumed that we don't need massive amounts of this vitamin daily, but we do probably need it in some way, shape, or form. And again, it's mainly found in curdled milk products. So enjoy some buttermilk and make sure you get the whey with it as well. So instead of herbal correspondences, since there's not really any to talk about, we are going to talk about planetary octaves instead. So the 3 outer planets are considered to be higher octaves of some of the 7 inner planets. So we're going to go over those, and we also won't detail any positive or negative correspondences because there's not really any associated with these, again, because they're not part of the original medical astrology system, right? But this will allow you to see how the positive and negative aspects can be shown if there are any at all. So in Uranus, we see that being the higher octave of Mercury. We can see this in Uranus's tendency to produce nervous energy, sudden and rapid change. And again, that rulership over the electrical system and the electrical quality that Uranus brings to us, right? Mercury is the intellectual mind, if you recall from the Mercury episode, whereas Uranus is the deeper level of the mind that is not conditioned to society. So it's a representation of the individual, free-thinking, liberated mind instead. Neptune, on the other hand, is the higher octave of Venus. So it is a very feminine energy yin planet, and we see in its spiritual nature and associations with the divine source. We can also see that through its transformation of personal love and affection for divine love and compassion. It is of interesting note that Venus is exalted in Pisces, the sign which falls under Neptune's governance. So you can see how those two actually ended up corresponding to each other before Neptune was ever found. So it makes you wonder if the universe, divine source, whatever you want to consider it, actually knew that was going to be discovered and had them associate all of this stuff prior to that, right? Pluto is the higher octave, on the other hand, of Mars, which we see since both rule Scorpio. It has strong associations to death, destruction, and power, whereas Mars has strong associations with our actions and our willpower, how we act in the world, right? It is more of our individual will in service of the egoic self, whereas Pluto is more like the divine will acting through it, guiding us to our destiny, our path, and our purpose for the greater good of the collective. So to balance these planets, since they're each seen as a higher octave of others, it's important to balance them the same way you would those other planets. So for Uranus, that's through Mercury, Neptune, that's through Venus, and Pluto is through Mars. So going back and listening to those episodes and how to balance those is best here, as well as just remembering you can balance any planet with adding more sun to your life and into your, diet and all of that, right, through the sun-governed plants and herbs. And you can also balance any planet through Mercury, as we learned in the Mercury episode. The only extra thing to add here is with Neptune, the trick to really balance Neptune is to learn to walk a spiritual path with practical feet, meaning that you're not losing yourself into the other world and becoming detached from the earth and your physical life in this physical realm, right? It's okay to have a connection to the divine source. It's okay to have a connection to the universe, to whatever deities have reached out to you and you want to commune with, to be able to talk to other beings. It's all fine to have that. But you need to be able to do that, right? Combine that with also living here in the here and now on this physical plane that you are currently residing in. Once your physical body decides to leave this realm and you are done and you go back up to wherever our spirits hang out to wait to come back to Earth and do it all over again later, you can live all the spiritual stuff you want to then. But when you're here, learning to live in harmony with those two is best. Overall, the outer three planets are super helpful in determining the root cause of why someone is experiencing the symptoms and dis-ease they are having and how to bring about restoration of health on a spiritual, psychological, and internal level. They help develop our individuality within the collective, our spiritual path, and our power to help the greater good of the collective. And that is an amazing thing. I think so. I really hope that this has helped you understand the outer planets and their role in medical astrology. If you are looking for help with your own natal chart and what is happening and how to fix it, let's schedule a medical astrology reading today with me and let's get that figured out so we can get you feeling better and on the path to health and wellness. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow the Alchemy Astrology and AstroHealth Podcast on whatever platform you listen to it, and leave a 5-star review so others can find it for themselves and listen to the awesomeness that is this podcast. Until next time, y'all, love and light. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it. You can find all relevant links to today's show in the show notes below. If you loved the show today, please subscribe, follow, and leave me a review. I love to hear your thoughts, and it helps me know what is a hit and to make more of that content, especially for you. If you want to learn more about me and how I can help you, head over to atlasastrology.com. There you can sign up for a medical astrology package, download my free sun sign and your health ebook, read the blog, and so much more. If you want to connect more outside the podcast, follow my Instagram channel @AtlaAstrology or join my Astro Connection community, the link to which you can find in the show notes. Until next time, love and light.